It's 105 degrees outside, so I think we need some lemonade.
I'm Greg.
I'm Julie, and we're the Crafty Winers. Except we're not making wine today.
I wouldn't want to be called the Crafty Lemonaders. Although it's got a ring to it.
It's not even a word.
We are making hard lemonade today. I'm going to show you how we do it. We're using Simply Lemonade, which we like the way that this comes out. And I think this came from Walmart. Although you can probably get it from Amazon and just about any place else.
Yeah. I think it's the best tasting lemonade. It's the most natural.
It is not from concentrate, but it's still only 10% lemon juice.
Huh.
But there are no ingredients in this that will cause us any issues. It's lemon juice, cane sugar, and natural flavors. So we don't need to worry about any chemicals that might inhibit fermentation. And from past experience, I know that there is no problem with fermentation. This is pasteurized, so in theory, it loses a little bit of flavor when they preserve it that way. But we haven't found one that is locally available that is perfect, I guess, for fermentation as far as, it doesn't have chemicals and is not pasteurized. You'd almost have to make it yourself. And we don't do that, so we're using somebody else's lemonade.
I guess we could, but
We
that's,
could.
yeah.
Maybe someday we will. So this video is going to be showing you how we make our base hard lemonade. We're not going to be adding any flavors, although we like to do stuff like blackberry, blueberry, huckleberry in our lemonades. This is going to be showing you just how we make the base hard lemonade, and then we'll have other videos that are dedicated to the different flavors.
We'll
So
share with you our favorites.
you will, to make this come out right, you'll either need to naturally or force carbonate it. I can link the forced carbonation video that we just released last week, but the natural carbonation one, you'll have to wait another week or so, probably depending on our release schedule. It is coming. We are going to be filming it next week, so it is coming soon. Any other ado?
Nope. I think we're ready.
So first thing you probably want to do is shake it up a little bit because the pulp ends up at the top of this.
That's why I like this lemonade, because it has the pulp in it.
These are 264-ounce containers, so they both go in here into our measuring pitcher.
Let's see if they're right on their ounces.
Yeah, we just literally just the last video we just recorded was our base apple cider, and the 1 gallon ended up being 130 ounces. So they were generous with their hard cider.
Oh, we also didn't say that we're drinking cider instead of wine
Yeah, we're
tonight.
drinking pomegranate cider that we made.
And there is a video on that.
It is a very interesting tart cider.
It's tart. I've literally never had anything like it.
You know what? I can't count. These are 52 ounce, not 64, so we're a little short. So we're going to add another lemonade to make up for it. Try to get 64-ounce containers, not 52.
Well, simply just has to be different.
Never fear, I have Amazon fresh lemonade from concentrate that we can add just to top this off.
That'll work.
Also pasteurized, also nothing bad in there other than it is concentrate. That's not bad, but it's not pulpy like
I see some
Simply.
stuff floating around in there.
This is 64, so this is where my confusion came from. So we just put enough in here to top this off. Now we're going to have a little bit different gravities probably between the two products. So unlike what I can usually do, I'm going to have to use my pumpkin gutter, which we have a link in the description below. This is the best little mixing thing that you can add to your drill that you're going to see today. But I'm going to mix it up because we do have two different juices now, and I want to make sure my gravity is taking them both into account. Obviously, you can also get 3 of the 52s if you had to, and then you'd have a little left over for the next batch. So now I am going to use my hydrometer to find out how much sugar is in this, approximately. We have a video on hydrometers and specific gravities if you've never done this before. The gravity is me call it 1.044.
Okay. All right.
And we want this to be 8%.
Okay, so I'm going to plug in the specific gravity here on our handy dandy tools, craftywineries.com/tools. 1.044, we want 8%. It's 100% full, so it's telling me 6.78 ounces.
Now keep in mind, you could go ultra dry. This calculator assumes that you're going to go to 1.00, which is the break-even point for dry. Most of our ciders and wines go ultra dry, so if you don't want it to be over 8%, shoot lower. Shoot for 7.
Mm-hmm.
If you're not wanting it to be over 8%. So how much sugar?
6.78.
6.78. Our digital
Ounces.
scale does not go to 2 decimal points, so let's go to 6.7.
This tool will also tell you cups if you don't have a scale, so that's helpful.
It calculates the cups from the weight, though, so the weight is more accurate than the measurements. If you can use weight, if you have a digital scale, I'd advise that you do that. Okay, so now we're going to do the hydrometer again to get our initial gravity with the sugar that we added. It's wanting to hug the side, but it is 1.061.
Okay.
Which I know from our last video, that is 8%. That's what we wanted.
Yep. That's what it says right here on our calculator. Okay.
So now I'm going to pour this into a measuring cup.
Because I'm going to use that.
We are going to put pectic enzyme in this, which will help clear the pulp, breaks the pulp down into its constituent products, I guess you'd say.
Would you say that? Constituent products?
Yes, I'm not going to say it again.
We need to take the pH too.
Let's do the pectic enzyme so we don't get ahead of ourselves.
So I put half a teaspoon of that in, and this likes to stick to the bottom.
Especially when it's a little cool.
Yeah.
I did have the bottles sitting next to the heater because they had been stored in the refrigerator to warm them up a little before we did this, but they still are kind of chilled. So now I'm going to take our pH, which if you're used to making wine and watching this video on hard lemonade making, you will be surprised at how much acid there is in lemonade. pH, if you're not familiar with, we can link a video on pH management. But basically we want to get the pH up to around 4 before we start fermentation. And it is 2.49.
Holy moly.
Yeah, it's very acidic. So yeah, people will tell you probably, I'm sure we'll get some comments saying, but modern yeast is okay at 2.4. But it's going to get more acidic as fermentation happens. And
yeah, the pH naturally drops.
It might handle it, but then again, it may not. And we do a lot less stalling if we raise the pH up to about 4 before we start the process. And it will naturally go down. And honestly, I don't want my hard lemonades to be as tart as a regular lemonade is. I can only drink like half a glass of lemonade, and I would definitely hope to drink more than half a glass of hard lemonade. So 2.49. So we have to add potassium bicarbonate to raise the pH up to around 4. Potassium bicarbonate does not mix easily.
No, it doesn't.
So you either have to do it for a long time, and if the liquid is warmer than this is, it'll be easier. But
yeah, this is still a little cold.
She's going to end up stirring it for a little while. So this is 2 teaspoons of potassium bicarbonate, which is a lot. And you normally are not going to want to do it all at once, but we have used this lemonade before, and we know that 2 teaspoons will get us right into the neighborhood. So if you're doing something that you haven't worked with before, make sure you go in smaller steps. If you overshoot the pH number, then you'll have to use an acid to bring it back down, and that just gets into a mess. Okay, after our 2 teaspoons, our pH is now... We overshot it a tiny bit, 4.06.
Oh, well, that's not bad.
It's not bad. The last one we did right at 4.0, so I was feeling a little
We can't be perfect every
overconfident.
time.
Oh, just most of the time. I don't want this to dry on my pH meter, so I'm going to rinse it off with tap water and then rinse it off with distilled water.
Okay, so we took a 1/4 cup of this, put it in here. I heated it up in the microwave. 8 seconds seems to be pretty much a good time to get it warm so that this Go Firm that I'm going to put in there dissolves a little easier, because otherwise it just sticks to my whisk.
And the yeast likes it better at
Oh,
that temperature.
yeah.
While she's doing that, I'm going to transfer our lemonade must.
That sounds kind of funny.
Lemonade that we're going to ferment into a carboy. It's been sanitized. Everything has been sanitized. You can watch our video on sanitization if you're even new to this. And right off the bat, you see pulp chunks that are going into the carboy. So this is going to be a chunky fermentation for at least a couple of days. The pulp.
Chunky fermentation.
We'll lose the chunks the next stage.
Because it's going to go on a diet?
Yeah, it won't be chunky anymore.
Keto?
Speaking of chunky, what are our corgis doing?
Absolutely nothing. Okay, that's pretty well mixed up.
So again, this measuring cup is probably around 85 degrees still. Although it's cooling because it's a chilly room that we're in right now.
Well, it's better than 105 degrees outside.
That is true.
Then I am going to add a heaping teaspoon of this Fresco cider yeast that we like. And I'm using 2 half teaspoons because I can't fit the teaspoon in this little jar. And then I'm going to dunk it just a little bit, get it moist. And then we're going to set it in front of our heater.
Set it in a warm place, someplace that's going to keep it around 85 degrees. I'm going to put this at the same place because when we put this yeast in about 2 hours, we would like this to be about the same temperature so there's not
so it doesn't shock it.
Shocked.
Yeah.
So after the yeast goes into here, put a 1-hole bung and a blow-off tube because occasionally these do get a little bit violent if they're happy.
Those two things don't go together.
Violent and happy? I can think of some exceptions.
Okay.
And then I usually take twist ties that are tied together just to make sure that the blow-off tube is not going to blow off itself because that gets messy. And the other end of this blow-off tube goes into the sanitizer bucket that we've been using tonight. So you end up with an airlock where this is in sanitizer so nothing can get into the end of the tube, but the CO2 can come out and bubble out. So it's a very effective blow-off tube, and since there's not a whole lot of headroom,
it could get up there.
It most likely is going to come out into the tube. So this is our method that we prefer for airlocking for the first 5 days.
We've actually had one of these with the twist tie on it blow out.
Yeah.
So
5 days, this is going to be a 60-degree room that is going to be where this is going to ferment. So at that temperature, about 5 days into this, I'm going to use our food saver and take the CO2 out of this for about 3 minutes. And we do have a video on CO2 and oxygenation, and it shows you how we use the food saver. After I degas this for 3 minutes, and you can also just rock this and get all the what do you call that? I'm going to say suds. You'll see
foam.
You'll see the bubbling come up from the CO2 as you're rocking it. So do that for if you're not using a food saver, I'd say do that for about 10 minutes. And then you need to put in, if you're using our Go Firm method, 1 teaspoon of Ferment O. And that is optional. The Go Firm is optional. It just makes it a lot better product at the end and a lot more consistent fermentations. After the 1 teaspoon of Ferment, the last thing that you're going to do on the 5th day is to use an aeration wand to put oxygen back into this, and that's for 3 minutes. Or if you don't have that equipment, again, you can watch our video on what the benefits are of doing that. But if you don't do that, just rock it again for another 10 minutes or so. So that's going to be end up being about 20 minutes worth of rocking, 10 before the Ferment and 10 after. And that'll do about the same thing. You're getting a lot of the CO2 out so that the yeast can be not swimming in their own waste.
And oxygen in it.
The Ferment will give nutrient to the yeast when they need it. And then oxygen is good for yeast. So those 3 things will make it so that hopefully, almost without fail for us, this will end up going to the end of fermentation and not stall.
Yeah.
And it doesn't have any of the stress features like bad smells or bad tastes or other things that can happen. So we are going to put this in front of our heater. 2 hours later, we're going to put this in here, and that's the start of the fermentation. And we will be back probably
in around 2 seconds for you.
But probably around 2 weeks for us.
Okay, we're back. It's only been 2 seconds for you, but it's been, 10 days for us.
So we took the specific gravity 3 days apart from each other after it stopped bubbling, and they were the same, which was
0.997.
So it went not overly dry. It went a little dry.
Pretty dry.
Anything under 1.00 is considered dry, so it's 3 points under. So, the measurement was the same 3 days in a row, which means that it was done.
Okay, so we started with initial gravity of 1.061, so I'm going to put that in here with our handy dandy tools.
CraftyWiners.com/tools.
And our final gravity was 0.997.
So not terribly dry, just sort of dry.
So that gives us an ABV of 8.56 using the complex calculation.
You can also use a simple, if you don't want to use our tool. Our tool is free, so it's nice to use, easy to use. But you can use a simpler formula that I'll put up on the screen. So we wanted 8. We got 8.5 because it went a little under dry. So
that's good, though.
That's fine.
That's fine. All right.
Okay. So we are going to rack this, which means transfer it from the primary fermenter to a 1 gallon jar where it's going to reside. There is all the pulp that was in the juice a couple of minutes ago for you. Is now, a lot of it is floating at the top, and it looks really weird.
It does look weird.
Looks like brains. And then at the bottom there's yeast that's got the yeast and other stuff that we've added, as well as other things that have dropped out of solution.
Is this the one that looked so weird when it was fermenting?
It was pineapple.
Oh, pineapple.
But this looked pretty... all of these juices that have pulp do sort of weird things, and it's interesting to watch. Sometime we'll probably end up doing a video collage of different weird fermentations that we've noticed. But so you want to try to not get any of that stuff sucked up into your auto siphon. It will come out in the jar. It'll go to the bottom again too, but the sooner you can ditch it, the better. We are going to get some of it sucked up. I can tell you some of it's floating up from the bottom.
I see, yeah.
I think just from the vibrations of my voice or something is stirring it up enough to do that. So it doesn't take much. It's super light stuff, and it will easily get sucked up into the tube. So just do your best. Good luck. That far from the least at the bottom, and it's still vacuuming it up.
Yeah.
It's just super light. So I tipped the jar at the bottom, and I am watching very carefully, because as soon as I start seeing a bunch of the stuff being sucked up, I'm going to pull this out. And then we're going to call that, just like...
Yeah.
So there's more juice in here, and if you were willing to suck up all the weird, nasty looking stuff that's in there. You could get more juice. I'm satisfied with this because I really don't. I don't like the look of that cloudy juice that's in there
and we got a little bit of
nearly
it
as
anyway.
much as I like that. So I'm going to call that good. This stuff is so light that an inch off the bottom it was sucking this stuff up like a vacuum cleaner.
Yeah, you can see a little bit in there.
It will go back down to the bottom. I wouldn't probably. I'm probably worrying about it more than I need to, but we're going to call that good. So as we said at the beginning of the video, we're just showing you our base hard lemonade. If you're going to keep it as just a hard lemonade without any other flavors, probably going to end up wanting to put lemonade concentrate, frozen concentrate, into this to sweeten it and add a little bit more flavor. Because this probably isn't going to have a lot of flavor right now. It normally won't. Let frozen concentrate completely thaw, then add it until the sweetness and the flavor level is there.
We just do it to taste.
Yeah.
So
there probably is we could probably give you a formula, and maybe we will do that for one of our flavoring videos. But for this one, we are going to leave this not flavored because we use sugar-free syrups and non-sugared extracts to flavor this. So we don't want to show sweetening it if we aren't always going to sweeten it, if you understand our concept here for this base recipe. So again, if you just want to have a hard lemonade that isn't going to have any other flavors, you probably want to use frozen concentrate that's thawed and add it to this to taste.
Yeah.
The reason I'm saying that now is if you're going to do that, you need to stabilize this before you add any sugar that can ferment. So to do that, we're going to use potassium sorbate and potassium metabisulfite. We also want to get this a little bit more clear and also make sure that the stuff that we did suck up that went to the bottom gets broken down and stays at the bottom. So we are going to show you the full effect here of what we would do. Now, if you're not going to add something that's fermentable, you can skip these potassiums. So for instance, if you're going to use a sugar-free syrup, say a blueberry syrup to make this blueberry lemonade, that is sugar-free. It's not going to restart fermentation. You could skip the potassiums.
We just always do it because we're not sure what we're going to do with it.
Correct. And we want you to do it the most safe way.
Yeah.
The safe way is always to put the potassiums in if you have any doubt. But we are going to probably split this into 2 half-gallon batches, and those 2 half-gallons could have totally different flavorings going on. Yeah. We'll be using those most likely for future videos to show you how to flavor them. So right now, I don't know if they're going to be fermentable sugars added to them or not. So we are going to do the potassiums. But again, if you know that you're not going to put something in there that's going to ferment, or you're going to put it in the fridge and drink it right away, so there's not an opportunity for it to re-ferment, start fermentation again, then you can skip that as well. You can skip the chiastisol, the chitosan, and the bentonite that we're going to tell you about if you don't care about it being more clear than it is. But we're again showing you the whole kit and caboodle on how you do this if you want to do all of the options.
And each one of these has a different measurement. I have like every measuring spoon we have right here. So we'll just list the measurements for you. So
the only tricky one is chiastisol. Chiastisol and chitosan are partners. Chiastisol works on negatively charged particles that are floating in here. Chitosan works on positive charged particles that are floating in here. If you put them in at the same time, they can counteract each other. So our advice is put the chiastisol in first,
which is what I'm going to
let it sit for about an hour, which we are probably not going to do because we're doing this on camera. But the very first thing I'm going to do is take out some of this, because we're going to grab a version of this that doesn't have any chiastisol in it, so that when we put the chitosan in, it's not working against the chiastisol that's in this.
Oh, yeah. I was getting ahead of myself. So we're going to put the chiastisol right in here.
So again, chiastisol and chitosan are going to help clear it. They'll make it more clear than it is, and they'll help break down those particles that are at the bottom so that they're not so floaty. I would normally have a stainless steel spoon.
Would you like me to get that for you?
But I'm going to use my sucky thing here. because I don't have a stainless steel spoon right now. And then a stainless steel spoon is going to magically appear here in a second. So let this sit, the castisol sit in here for an hour. Unless you are filming 5 videos in the same night, and then you don't have time for that crap. So
meanwhile, I'm going to mix all the other ingredients in here, and then we'll add it when we're ready to add it.
I will put the measurements up on the screen, but we're putting in Cheetozan, we're putting in bentonite, which is a clay that also helps clarify it. Then we are putting in
Potassium sorbate and potassium metabisulfite.
correct. And those, they don't stop fermentation. They just will slow it and make it so that adding sugar, at least 24 hours from now, adding sugar back into this isn't going to start a fermentation again, because you don't necessarily want that. There are other ways to keep it from starting up, like keeping it chilled in the fridge. But as soon as somebody takes it out and puts it into a bottle and puts it into your cupboard, you have a potential problem. So it's better to be safe than sorry. Now, if we were dealing with a wine, I would be talking right now about how you should degas it, make sure that there isn't any CO2 in it before you bottle it. However, this is a lemonade.
Yes.
So we are going to carbonate this. So there is no point in getting the CO2 out because we're just going to be putting CO2 back in. So I already linked, I believe, our forced carbonation video earlier in this broadcast. So I'm not going to do it again. If you didn't see the link, go back and see the link or search for our forced carbonation video on how we will force carbonate this.
Or you can naturally carbonate it as well.
But we also are going to have videos that you can watch on our different flavor ideas. For lemonade, huckleberry will be one. Blueberry will be another, and I'll leave some to be surprises. But you would obviously add those flavors in before you carbonate. So pretend it's been an hour. And she's adding the other ingredients. And now I have a stainless steel spoon.
The bentonite did good this time.
You don't need the sucky thing.
It normally sticks to the bottom, but it didn't.
As I'm stirring this, you might be able to see on camera how much CO2 is in this. It's foaming. You can see little tiny bubbles that are coming up to the top and foaming on the top. That's CO2 from fermentation. So again, that isn't a big deal because we were just going to be carbonating this anyway. But what I'm going to do now is I'm not really concerned about headroom because this is going to live in a fridge. So I am going to stick a marble on top of the airlock.
We really like our marbles.
So that nothing can fly into this. I'm going to stick this in my refrigerator for 24 hours so that the potassiums can do their job. Just basically spread the word that no fermentation is going to be allowed from this point on. And then I would do whatever I wanted to do for my finished product. I'm going to add my concentrate lemonade to add flavor and sweetness if that's the route I want to go. Or I'm going to add blueberry syrup, sugar-free syrup, or sugared syrup if you want to. Now it's stabilized to taste until it's the way that I want it to taste.
And you can do both. Put a little bit more lemonade in and then add some flavor.
And again, watch for our recipes. We will have specific recipes on the way that we do, like the huckleberry flavor and the blueberry flavor and so on. But this is a base video, the base video for our hard lemonade. After this is sat for 24 hours and I do my flavoring, then I'm going to force carbonate it. You also could naturally carbonate it and watch for our video on natural carbonation. Forced carbonation is pretty darn easy and pretty quick. I mean, you can have the finished cider 2 days from now, where natural carbonation you're looking more at 3 weeks, probably. So pick your poison.
I kind of like the natural carbonation, though. I feel like I've succeeded with something, you know?
You did. So I think that's it for this video. Again, this is supposed to be this. I know I'm beating a dead horse maybe, but this is the base hard lemonade. This is not trying to tell you how to finish the product. Watch for other videos on how to get the flavoring the way that you want it, or the way that we want it, the way we like it. One thing I do need to mention is You do want to probably change your pH depending on your long-term goals. If you're planning on putting this away, you want to probably make sure that the pH is around 3.8 or lower. However, you can't really do that till after you finish this, until you have your flavorings on there, because they're going to change the pH level.
Yeah.
So just for curiosity's sake, I'm going to check the pH on this. But adding concentrate to this, or even adding syrups or extracts to this,
is going to change it.
It's going to change it to some extent. You're not going to know how much until you do it. So you don't want to change the pH right now until after you're finished. It's 4.08. So there's not a lot of adjustment that's necessary. 4.07 is what it just switched to. So you wouldn't have to change it much, but you are going to want to probably lower it a little bit. If you're planning on drinking right away, don't even worry about the pH. But if you're planning on putting it on the shelf, or if you're going to give it away and there's a chance the person you're going to give it to might store it for a while, try to get that pH down to about 3.8. We have a pH management video that I believe I already linked earlier in the video, so watch that and learn how to do it. Basically, you're going to want to add, the case of lemonade, you're going to add citric acid, a little bit of citric acid to lower it down to 3.8 or less. And to taste, if you put huckleberry in here, you may decide that a little more citric to make it a little more zingy is good. So,
and adding concentrate is probably going to lower the pH as well, just by itself.
We will make it a point on our recipe videos, our specific recipe videos, to tell you the pH that we like to take it to for that particular recipe. And it will be almost always using, in the case of lemonade, citric acid. In our ciders, you'd use malic acid. In our wines, you use tartaric acid.
So thank you for watching our video on making hard lemonade. We hope you try it, and you can put in the comments if you added blueberry or huckleberry or strawberry or vanilla, whatever. Just let us know how you liked it, and please like the video and subscribe to our channel if you haven't already. If you have, thank you very much. We appreciate your support. Until next time, cheers.